You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do? Doctor, will it be okay? You got the kind of stuff that makes my day.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So it's primary day in Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, Virginia, Washington. And one of the more watched races is the Michigan Democratic Senate primary, where Abdul El-Sayed holds a double-digit lead, and who's progressive, and aligning with DSA, even though he's trying to back off from that, but leading resoundingly over Representative Haley Stevens, who considers herself more moderate. And being that Abdul El-Sayed has been able to out-fundraise and be able to really monopolize the media, it looks like he might win. And seeing more and more of these candidates, where he's campaigned with Hassan Piker, who has had horrible statements about Israel and pro-Hamas and all sorts of and rhetoric as it pertains to 9/11, and how El-Sayed has aligned with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. It's frightening, not only, just I think regular Michigan folks, but also the Democrats, because can he win, when it's up against the Republican face-off in November? And so seeing Abdul El-Sayed win resoundingly, we're seeing the recipe that the Democratic progressives, or the Democratic Socialists are doing. They're looking for younger, energetic. They're trying to look for opposite of the Bidens. They're using the Biden debacle as an advantage to them, because that's how they're making such headway. The Democrats lied to the Democratic people and the Republicans and Americans, right, for 4 years about Biden and his abilities. And it almost really, put the nail in the coffin for the Democratic Party. So the socialists can't just start out like this, as squad. They can't just start from a grassroots. They need to build on somebody else's money and somebody else's base. And so they're tapping in on the progressive liberal base and that money. And Democrats are going to have to decide, can these people win? So what the Democratic Socialists are doing is they're coming up with younger people like Zohran Mamdani, energetic, people that could tap in on the Muslim vote, on finding people with anti-Israel sentiment, anti-ICE sentiment, anti-government, anti-rich sentiment, and free healthcare for all, free, wipe out all the student loans. And they think that sort of narrative, those sort of talking points is going to win people over. And it actually is. It's winning a lot of people over. The big concern they have is that they might not get enough elected by the time people see Zohran Mamdani fail. And Zohran Mamdani is failing, right? He's already scaring wealthy taxpayers out of New York. He's already being hypocritical in terms of IDs and needing people to show IDs for certain things when he's anti-voter ID. He's the free buses, the government-run stores, very slow on that. And I think he's starting to see that a lot of what if he doesn't make good on this, he could basically kill the whole DSA campaign. So what we're seeing right now is with these primaries, such a push to get as many people in. And even if they get in and fail, they still can springboard to other platforms and other offices like Attorney General, etc. So it's kind of scary that they're making the headway that they're making, but it's not shocking. It's not shocking at all. When your George Clooney's and your Democrats had been for years saying, oh yeah, Biden, and even Obama supporting Biden, people are going to be like, well, wait a second. Okay, you made us buy this. You wanted us to drink this Kool-Aid. No. Okay, we're not believing in it. Not to mention all the BS with COVID. It wasn't a Democrat-Republican thing with COVID. A lot of Democrats are like, I don't want the shot. Okay, I don't want the lockdown. A lot of Democrats don't like the writing off student loan debt because they paid their student loans. So a lot of the moderate Democrats are looking at things as, wait a second here. This isn't what we want. But they have a choice. Either being with MAGA and MAGA, or being with the Democrats, being with the socialists. And here we have Abdul Sayed, and we have I believe the Wisconsin governor. We're seeing very, very left-leaning progressives that have which can affect our border, which could affect crime, could affect bail, could affect school safety, could affect women competing against biological men. I mean, could affect all of that. And if they do take hold of these offices, and the damage doesn't get seen and the damage done, or people don't care, or they take such control and change the laws where even if they are damaging the area and damaging their precincts and their districts, nobody can vote them out. They're going to take power. Now, Trump, on his side, the Iran war, even though many people understand why it had to be done, anybody with a brain understands why Iran had to be defanged. And I'm glad Trump did that. The longer this goes and it affects gas prices and other things, the more unpopular it gets. It has to be done quickly. It has to finish. Now that many people have relatives who came across illegally, haven't really followed the normal legal immigration process, you have many people having a tie to somebody who might get deported. So the longer this goes, the more we could start seeing some unpopularity on the Republican side. However, Republicans can win if they're up against somebody like Mamdani or up against somebody like Abdul Sayed. If they're like this is just way too fanatic, and it won't work. Mamdani is really kind of kicking the can down the road. He's not doing the free buses, although I'm hearing people are just riding the bus for free. They're not even paying anymore. So they're just on the buses for free. So I'm hearing there's already that going on. And if the media isn't going to be covering the backlash, people will still keep voting for these guys. Something's got to get done. 1-877-Dr. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years, stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, as much as we want to kind of, regroup and not think about politics for a little bit, the 2028 contenders are starting to get out there. Ocasio-Cortez got a little bit of a boost from, I believe, one poll that happened, one single poll of about 600 people that said she would be leading Pete Buttigieg by 1 point and multiple points as it pertained to Gavin Newsom and Harris, whereas Kamala Harris still nationally leads for the Democrats. But Kamala Harris, who would have originally been considered a moderate, is going to go more extreme as she's watching the DSA start to make headwind. And so she has in interviews suggested to, quote, revisit the Electoral College. She says we need to revisit the point of expanding the court to 13 justices, like we have 13 district courts. We need to revisit, if they so want, statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C. Kamala Harris said, I know this is going to be controversial coming from me in particular, but Democrats will need to be too big to rig. Now, too big to rig is a phrase that President Trump said, which he held correct. Because 2020 election was such a cluster and a half with the mail-in ballots, Trump had said for the 2024 election, he had to win big so that there wasn't going to be enough shenanigans with mail-in ballots and boxes of those coming in late or whatever else had been suggested as cheating mechanisms in previous elections to make a difference. And that's why, if you notice, Trump's election got called that night. We knew he was the winner because he led so resoundingly. So Kamala Harris is saying that the strategy for the Democrats would have to include messing with the Constitution. She didn't say that directly, but if you're screwing around with the Electoral College, that's messing with the Constitution, and adding extra states, making Puerto Rico a state and D.C. a state. She says it means being ruthless. They are ruthless. She said, we need to be ruthless too. And by that, I do not mean cruel. That is not our nature. But that I do mean by that, I do not mean breaking the law. That is not what we do. She says, but I do mean we must be uncompromising and we must allow for a real conversation about revisiting certain things. So she's upset because she lost the Electoral College to Trump, 312 to 226 in 2024. And Trump did win the popular vote. He got more than 2 million more votes than Harris. But as Hillary Clinton had argued, she would have won because she had the popular vote and the Electoral College prevented her from winning against Trump. And the problem with the popular vote is it doesn't give Arkansas a voice. It doesn't give Wyoming a voice, New Mexico a voice. Our founding fathers were brilliant. They didn't want elections just based on Philadelphia, New York taking hold. They wanted to make sure that even the smaller colonies had a voice because we're the United States. Getting rid of the Electoral College and messing with that basically means California and New York get to run the country. And that is not representative of the heartland, of the South, of the Midwest. If the popular vote in Iowa goes Democrat, the Democrats will win the Electoral College in Iowa. If the popular vote in New Mexico goes Democrat, they win the electoral votes. But people are thinking that the electoral votes are what's giving Republicans an advantage. And it's nullifying the popular vote. The thing is again, with the sanctuary cities and everything they're trying to do to manipulate numbers, popular votes are important, but you have to look at where those numbers are coming. Now, if you want to take the popular vote and divide it and say every popular vote weighs 1/50th, you could do that, but they're not going to want to do that. So urban areas usually vote more Democrat, suburban, rural areas usually vote more Republican. So of course the Democrats want a way to have more urban in control. And trust me, the urban cities, they hold a lot of power And they do deserve a voice, but the Electoral College still gives them that voice. In terms of adding, she's trying to justify increasing the Supreme Court justices to 13 because of the 13 district courts. So what she wants to do is, if she becomes president, pack the court with 4 more justices. That's, is that fair? Honestly, I've always had a problem with justices being Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal. When you have a justice, their job is to be neutral. That a judge is supposed to be fair and neutral. We're not supposed to be having these, well, I'm going to pick somebody who is going to support this, or I'm going to that. A judge is supposed to be going in with a clean slate. So we already have a major issue. But then to pack extra who are going to be yes men for a president, no, not cool at all. And then making Puerto Rico a DC a state. DC is where our capital is. I don't know if I feel okay with, our capital being its own state. The capital is the capital of the country. And it's supposed to have a the capital is not supposed to be partisan. It's not supposed to, it's the capital where that is. I mean, you could be in a province, you could be in a section of the country, but to be its own state could cause for bias, could cause for, a change in resources. If one state is getting extra National Guard and security and funds, well, then all states have to. And I think the capital requires its own different needs. And I think it being separate from a state. Puerto Rico may want to become a state. And we are hearing that some people they're preferring it, because there's going to be, although they don't want to lose their identity, they still want to be Puerto Rico, they do need the government assistance. And having that government assistance, especially with national emergencies and the government assistance is something that they'll benefit from. So it sounds like if you offer Puerto Rico statehood, they're going to jump on that. Well, if a Democrat makes that happen, they're going to vote Democrat. So tipping the scale with the states, trying to add extra states, and these are games. And the whole purpose of the reason why we have the elections and all that is people are supposed to vote on the person. It's not supposed to be voting R or D. It's who is going to represent us and do the best job possible. Now, I understand why it's gone R and D. Because people feel if the D's get into power, then XYZ happens and the R's can never, ever get into power again, and vice versa. That's not the case. We are going to have Democratic presidents. We're going to have Republican presidents. But if they change the rules such that a Republican can never get back into office or a Democrat can never get back into office, that's sick. I don't like the whole redistricting issues. I understand why redistricting happens, because populations shift. But when you have a state where multiple counties feel represented one way, and then you gerrymander and you try to manipulate it so you get pieces of an urban population grabbing that rural so that it converts that whole thing blue or red, that's not fair. And so, Kamala Harris is already saying that they need to be ruthless. And that means power hungry, power grabbing. They're mad. Are they going to break the filibuster? Are they going to do things that overstep? I believe so. And it's going to get ugly. And I really worry that we're going to turn into a civil war. Guns being taken away, gun-free zones. We talked about that rabbi, suing the state of Maryland so that they can have volunteer security to protect themselves from somebody who's not going to follow the laws and going to go on their property and try to shoot them up. I mean, there has to be a way where people can feel protected. People can feel safe. People can feel their representatives represent them. And that's not what they're seeing. And I unfortunately foresee that our democracy falls apart. I think it's going to be the Republicans that are going to find themselves really, shall we say, discriminated against and not being able to ever take hold again once the Democrats are able to manipulate the system. And then you're going to see people start to just want to separate and secede and all that. We're already, having rumblings of that. And I don't want to see that. Okay, we're the United States of America. We can get along. We can make this work. All right? We could have Republican presidents, we could have Democrat presidents, and we could do well. But the extremes are taking over. And now Kamala Harris suggests we have to be ruthless. That's not good. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
And we're back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I'm watching the destruction of the Spokane area fires. Thousands of people evacuated, hundreds of structures destroyed, just an absolute travesty. But they have arrested a potential arsonist involved. Aaron Forrest Farinacci is the arson suspect in one of the Spokane area fires. They believe it's the Old Trails fire. And interestingly, Aaron is 37 years old, and he has a prior charge he had pled guilty to manslaughter and aggravated assault in 2012. So we were told Monday afternoon that he was arrested in Spokane. He has prior criminal convictions, is being held on a $1 million bond, according to the sheriff's office. According to Nonstop Local KHQ, investigators said a witness reported to Airway Heights police that they saw a man looking into the trees before seeing smoke in the area. Resources were put towards evacuating residents, protecting structures, but investigators were able to find him less than a mile from the fire. DNR and Spokane County Major Crimes Units worked together, determined the fire origin, and reportedly Farinacci had waterproof matches and a butane lighter on him when he was arrested. Now, the investigation is still ongoing. There might be other charges brought up, but he's going to make his first court appearance this week. When I hear these things happen, you wonder how to stop that. Somebody going out into I go camping all the time. I go hiking. Somebody just walking around with a butane lighter could cause such devastation. First responders did mobilize quickly on 3 fires that ended up erupting right away. The Old Trails fire north of Airway Heights, Autumn Lane fire near 5 Mile Falls, and the Fairview fire near Meade. According to crews, evacuations were issued from many homes in the area. They worked 24/7. And some of the fires are still not contained to any significant degree. But some of the evacuation levels for the Old Trails fire, Fairview fire, and parts of the Spokane area fires have been downgraded. As of last night, the Spokane County Emergency Management Department said the area between Magnesium Road to the north, Francis Avenue to the south, Division Street to the east, and Nevada Street to the west had been downgraded from a level 2, meaning be set, to a level 1 get ready evacuation. Officials announced Sunday that the Old Trails fire north of Airway Heights, the Autumn Lane fire near 5 Mile Falls, and the Fairview fire near Meade were now being managed together as under the umbrella of the Spokane area fires. So as of yesterday, the three fires had reached a combined 8,000 acres. Incident managers reported that the Old Trails fire at 3,600 acres, the Autumn Lane fire at 3,300 acres, and the Fairview fire at about 1,000 acres. California Interagency Incident Management Team 7 reported that more than 600 structures have been impacted, though officials said that did not necessarily mean all were destroyed. More than 900 firefighters were working the fires on Monday, and that expected to grow 2,000 over the week as we're moving down towards the week. Fortunately, we have had no deaths. We are concerned about hospitalizations. As you know, wildfire smoke is extremely devastating. And I'm getting patients that are struggling to breathe, trying to get out of the area, get better air. We were just dealing with a lot of the wildfires, and I still think we are dealing with the sequelae of the wildfires in the Northeast coming from Canada. And then when you add this on top of it, this shifts east. And so the East is not going to be getting too much of a break from this. With wildfire smoke, the quality of the air not only completely crumps, but for those people that are sensitive, meaning when they have like COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, chronic bronchitis, other vulnerabilities, heart disease, the wildfire smoke can definitely accentuate their medical risks. In forest and community fires, we'll have carbon monoxide, which competes with oxygen in the blood. We have carbon dioxide, which you don't want to breathe in. It's a respiratory byproduct, but you get more of that. You have the wood particles, you have formaldehyde, you have the acrolein, you have benzene, you have plastics, thousands of respiratory irritants. You have the waxes on the trees. You have the heat and chemical reactions that happen when it heats up so much in a wildfire. And so according to the EPA, the smoke is composed primarily of carbon dioxide, water vapor, carbon monoxide, particulate matter, hydrocarbons, and other organic chemicals, nitrogen oxides, trace materials, and several other compounds. They say the actual composition of smoke depends on the fuel type, the temperature of the fire, and the wind conditions. Different types of wood and vegetation are composed of varying amounts of cellulose, lignin, tannins, and other polyphenolics, oils, fats, resins, wax, and starches, which produce different compounds when burned. So if you are coughing, wheezing, having difficulty breathing, chest pain, mucus production, dizziness, lightheadedness, fatigue, racing heart, exacerbation of your COPD or asthma or chronic bronchitis, if you have underlying heart conditions, you really want to consider getting out of Dodge. We're also seeing spikes in COVID right now. Still a little too early for flu season, but we are seeing COVID, and we know that wildfire smoke spreads it. This COVID strain, not fun at all, and it's really. I wish COVID would go away, and I wish China would take responsibility for what they did, because this is going to be haunting us for years. But understand that anything that upsets or interferes with the respiratory issues can be dangerous. So, I want to go back to this man here that had a criminal background, that was running around, I guess, a forest allegedly, and had waterproof matches and a possible butane lighter, 37-year-old, who might have started this fire just by walking around. Thank God there was a witness. You don't really have a lot of CCTV. You don't have a lot of cameras in the area. But luckily somebody saw this person, and then they were able to arrest him within a mile away. He has had prior criminal convictions, as we talked about, the manslaughter charge in 2012. He's being held on $1 million bond. But how do you prevent these individuals? I hear in California many homeless individuals that may have mental illness. Not all homeless individuals do, but some of them are very fascinated with fire, especially if they want to warm themselves up on the cold nights, and that homeless people are caught lighting fires often. How do you control this with the vast, beautiful amounts of wood and forest? I was just in Alaska, one of my favorite states by far. just acres and acres and miles of trees. And somebody could be really just so malicious, so disgusting to want to ruin that. I don't know how city officials prevent against that. I mean, yeah, we have state parks and you have, ways to block people entering, but you can't gate up or wall up all your natural forest. And so it really then depends on the response time of our first responders. As soon as any smoke is detected, our teams have to jump on that to eliminate the threat. And with something like this, they got to it as quickly as possible, but it's still causing acres and acres of damage. So, it'd be interesting to see what he says in court. It's frustrating to think that there's individuals out there that fantasize about this, but look at what happened with the Palisades fire. These are individuals that may have a axe to grind or want to get back at society but unfortunately this could cause massive destruction and death. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hi, everyone. Dr. Dahlia here. Thousands of physicians, residents, nurses, and medical students are silently dealing with depression. And tragically, 400 take their lives each year. 400! I wrote The Depressed Doctor, hoping to reach out to anyone struggling. You're not alone. Don't stay silent. The Depressed Doctor can be found on Amazon, or the book can be found on drdahlia.com. And if you or anyone you know needs help, call or text 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So every day I have patients who tell me that they haven't been taking their medications because they can't afford it. And, I'm okay, what medications are they? And some of them are expensive, because especially if they have plaque psoriasis or hepatitis and things like that. But, for a lot of the generics that are out there now for blood pressure or diabetes, they can be fairly reasonable. But, when I dig a little deeper and you start to hear what their salaries are, and you see how they start to make cuts, they'll get iPhones. These apparently having an iPhone and access to computers and internet and streaming services seem to take precedence. I wish we could flip that. That's why I have a big problem with tech and our reliance on tech, because people are now skipping, essentials that they need because now they need all these tech essentials. But, it's shocking to see how little people's salaries are. So to spend $20 a month on your medications, which is cheap, considering what other people have to pay, it starts to put things into perspective. And no wonder we have chronic disease and issues. And again, people are not going for their screens or their tests or I can't tell you how many times, I asked a patient, did you see the dentist? Because it looks like your teeth are rotting. This could be going into the bone. They go, I can't afford to go to the dentist. So what are some of the money people are making? So this article caught my eye. It's from Investopedia, the average salary for your age. And they say the median salary, if you're between 16 and 24 years old, right, is $771 a week, or about 40 grand a year. That's according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. So at your earliest, now I never made that money as a 16-year-old. So for me, that would be some really decent money. But if you are a young parent and you're 22, 23, and you're only making 40 grand a year, that's a struggle. But that's what the median salary is for 16. Some people are making more, especially if they're influencers or whatever. And then some people are making less, but on average, about 40 grand a year. If you're between 25 and 34, you may be on average making $1,100 a week, or about 60 grand a year. If you are 35 to 44, you may be averaging $1,300 a week, or 72 grand a year. What's interesting is that's the peak in this study. The median salary, if you're 45 to 54, starts to drop, $1,377 a week, or $71,600 a year. And then when you're 55 to 64, the median average is about $1,300 a week, or $68,700 a year. If you are over 65, you may on average get $1,100 per week, or $62,000 a year. All right, that's not a lot of money, especially when you see all these reports that the average person needs to make, over six figures in order to make it worth them not to be on the government dime. Now, how do you fix this? We talked about yesterday how it costs over $300,000 to raise a kid. And I told you with the sports and, clothes and food and all that and medical expenses, I could see it even going beyond that. But I don't like those articles, because when you have a young couple and they go, well, we have to wait till we have $300,000 in the bank, you'll never have $300,000 in the bank. In order to, you'll never be able to do that. You'll never have kids. And so you have to, come up with a plan with your family and a spending plan and daycare. See, daycare is one of the biggest costs. That now, I had to work, and luckily work offset it. But I remember my husband and I talking about how, we might save money by not working and not needing daycare. I mean, that's how expensive daycare was. And power to the teachers and the daycare providers. They deserve the money they get. They don't get a lot. The companies get it. But to take care of your baby when you're not there, that costs a penny, and it should cost. But you have to make a choice of working or daycare. That hurts. So if you're making 40 grand or 50 grand or 60 grand, are you cutting it? Are you, apartments. I was in Omaha and I was asking my nephews, what's the average apartment rate? And they go, it's going up there. It's about $1,000 a month. That's a lot. I remember in medical school, I would, in college, I would rent a room for $150, $200 a month with however many roommates, so we could bring that $400 a month apartment cost down. But that was in Las Vegas. Now, Las Vegas, the average is $1,500 to $2,000 a price for apartments. Well, if you're only making $40,000 a year and you're spending close to $24,000 on rent, that's not. By the way, these are the salaries. What happens after taxes? You're not bringing home $40,000 or $67,000. You're bringing home a lot less. So one thing that does need to be done is like what we saw with the big beautiful bill. We've got to, figure out a way to pay less taxes. If you're getting tips, if you're overtime, things like that, if there's a way where you don't have to pay more taxes, if we could limit the taxes, we could then improve what you're getting in terms of your salary. The idea of make employers pay you more didn't work. And that caused a lot of people to lose their job. In fact, we're going to be talking about later in the week how what many people are doing, which is my style of things, which I like, is rather than just one single full-time job, where if you got fired, you're screwed. I have always throughout my life had multiple jobs. So that if anything happened, there was already something else there, that I could support myself with. And so what a lot of the Gen Zs are doing is multiple part-time work so that they aren't screwed if they do get laid off. And you just keep hearing over and over and over again that AI is replacing our jobs. AI is replacing our jobs. We have to train our AI. They're not lying. Okay. The writing is on the wall. So that 80-20 rule, is good where, you take 80% of, like if you get a bonus, they always say take 80% of that bonus and pay off debt or put it into savings or put it into a high yield account, something you could do with that. And then you could enjoy the 20% guilt-free. You could, play around with that money because you do need to enjoy life. I mean, that's one thing a lot of people in my generation didn't do. It was, well, it's all about the future. It's all about the future. And then my 20s were gone like nothing because I was in school the whole time. And it's like, well, I have to do this because of the future. And then when I had the kids, well, later, we'll travel later. And finally, I stopped myself and said, to hell with this. I want to take a trip. I want to enjoy life while I still can. I don't want to get burned out like everybody else. So you do need to be able to have in your budget that fun money, but you also have to save. And we are seeing a lot of people aren't saving the degree that their other generations did because they can't. Their iPhone's expensive, their streaming services. My husband said, Dahlia, can we drop our Disney subscription? We're not really watching a lot of things on Disney. Although I do want to see the second season of Loki and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. ESPN is on that now. And so I need to keep Disney because I get access to ESPN so then I could watch more sports. And so, our priorities now are these streaming services and our phones and our apps and what we're spending on. We've created the society where we have to spend a lot more money. I never needed to be around a computer when I was younger. Now I have to have a computer with me wherever I go. My radio equipment, pretty expensive. You can't, I couldn't do what I was doing without my equipment. And so I'm very grateful for tech, but it's one of the main reasons why we are not advancing financial wise. And for people to say, you need to save. You need to save 80% of your paycheck, or you need to have at least 6 months savings or 6 months rent in your savings to that goes on deaf ears when you don't have that kind of money coming in. The average person is living paycheck to paycheck. And then you try to go out or you try to get a pizza. There's this pizza place near my house where now 2 slices and a drink is up to $11-12. And I remember when it was $6. Just in a few years, it's gone up that high. And it's not the company's fault. It's because of supply chain and just everything costs more. And they have to pay their staff more. So now that they're paying their staff more, they're going to sock it to the customer, the consumer. It's going to take us all together saying no mas. We're not going to be upgrading our iPhones. We're not going to be spending 50, 60 grand for an electric vehicle. We're not going to be, it's going to take us to say, if it's too expensive, I'm not buying it. I don't care what's streaming on your station. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.